In this lesson, we're going to be walking through how to set up our development environment and the tools that are going to be used in the upcoming lessons to present the course content. So first of all, you are going to need an editor. The editor that I'm going to be using within this course is the Visual Studio Code. It's available at code.visualstudio.com. This is an open source editor. There's a Mac version, Windows, and Linux version. Now you don't have to use the same editor as I'm using. If you're comfortable with your editor, if you already have one that you like, then you can go ahead and stick to that one. Or if you want to try something new and haven't tried Visual Studio Code, then you can try this one. And one of the nice things and the benefits of Visual Studio Code is that it's got some really nice add-ons. And one of the add-ons that we're going to be making use of is the LiveServer add-on. So this is an add-on that is also a Node package that is available. You can download it separately or you can download it within the Visual Studio Code as an add-on. And what this does is this allows us to run a live server, a local machine server directly on our computer. And a lot of times the reasons that we want to run a live server is specifically if we are making AJAX requests, a lot of them won't work with the file protocol. And that's where we need to use the HTTP protocol. And having a live server allows you to do that. So if you're having any type of security restrictions on the server when you're fetching the content using JavaScript, this sometimes is the case that it's going to throw an error with the AJAX requests. So also having the page reload automatically after the file is updated and changed is also a nice benefit when you are developing, that you can see the changes in real time. So let's go ahead and set that up, and I'm opening up the workspace for the Visual Studio Code. So this is just a window that I've got just above my browser window. So it's just slightly minimized so we can see the browser tabs at the top, and I can also easily switch between them. So the difference between the file protocol and the HTTP protocol is that the file protocol is the one that uses the file in the beginning. So this is directed within your local computer space, and you're going to see that wherever the file is located on your computer, that's the path that's going to be within the web browser, as opposed to running it within a local machine where the code is actually going to be sitting within an IP address. So it's going to be simulating what you see on the server. So let's go ahead and set up some code. So write some basic HTML container code, and that's including the head and also title, and I'll just call it JavaScript demo. And then from here, let's set up the body tags. And just before we close off the body tags, we're going to link out to an app.js file. So that's going to be the JavaScript file that we're going to be working with and connecting the HTML to. Also creating a div, give it a class of output, and that will give us a container that we can output some content into. So when we refresh the page, we're not going to see anything. We do see the title there. Also, I am using Chrome. Chrome comes with developer tools. So developer tools are handy tools that you can make use of to help while you're developing web applications. And with Chrome, they come standard and built in. You can access it either by clicking on the page, right-clicking, and doing the inspect, and that's going to open up the developer tools console. There's also on a Mac Control, click anywhere and hit inspect. And there's also in the top right-hand corner, if you go to more tools and hit the developer tools, and there's also a shortcut as well for that, and that's going to open up the developer tools window. And within the developer tools window, there's a few customizations. So you can dock it to the bottom, you can dock it to the left, you can dock it in a separate window, and by default it's going to be docked over to the right. And there's a lot more information here that you can do with the tools. So what we'll do is we'll just minimize this slightly, and we already do see that there's an error within the console, and it says that the app.js file is not found, and that's because we're linking to it, but we haven't created it yet. So let's go ahead and create a new file. So file, and just save this one in the same folder directory. So do a save as, and save that as the app.js so that we have a place to write the JavaScript code. So when I refresh this, the error goes away and everything is good. So now go into the code and under preferences, and then hit the extensions. And that's going to open up the different extensions that you can install within your Visual Studio Code. I do have a few that are installed. I've got the Beautify and the ESLint. So these are just ones that I use on a regular basis that help me clean up the code so it looks, indents it, and it looks more readable. And then the one that we want to focus on in this lesson is the LiveServer. So the LiveServer, if you don't have it installed, you can search the extensions and just type in search LiveServer, and that's going to return back the LiveServer. And it's this one here by Ritwik Day that we want to be using, that I'm going to be using as well. And just make sure that it's installed. If it's not installed, go ahead and do the install on it. If it's disabled, go ahead and enable it. And once you have the LiveServer extension running, you should be able to go into your index file and right click or control click and open the LiveServer. Sometimes you do need to add the file or the folder to the workspace for it to work. So let's go ahead and try open the LiveServer and let's see what happens. So what this does is this opens up on the HTTP protocol. So it gives us an IP address, it gives us a port that we're using, and then the file that we're using for development. And I'm going to also open up the DevTools console, and then we've got the code there, and you're always going to see that it's missing the favicon icon. So this will go away if you refresh it. So that's sometimes questions that I get about why they see that, and that's because the default for the web browsers, it looks for that icon. And that's that little icon that you see up here in the tabs at the top for most websites. And because we're just developing some code and focused on JavaScript, we're not going to include that into the code. So now when we make some changes to our code, so let's type in and do 2 and save. When you look at the browser tabs, the demo 2 has now been updating the title, whereas on the file protocol there's been no updates. So that's another advantage to using LiveServer, is that whatever you update, you're going to see it live immediately on your page. And that also goes to if you add in some code and you save it, and once you save it, you don't need to refresh the page. It will automatically add the content and update the content on the page. There's also this message here within the Visual Studio Code that shows that the LiveServer is up and running. So before the next lesson, where we're going to dive right into JavaScript and start coding JavaScript, make sure that you have your basic container for the HTML set up, linking to a JavaScript file that you can write code into. And then also, if you want, use the Visual Studio Code, and it is suggested that you do set up the LiveServer so that you can have the same type of setup that I have. And when we get more into making the AJAX requests, sometimes they do throw the errors, so it is suggested that you do go with either a LiveServer or any type of other local machine server. And if you don't want to use Visual Studio Code, you can also download Node, now download the LiveServer package and do an install using the npm install on LiveServer, and then you just have to navigate over to the directory that you are using and that you want to run the server on, and then you can, from your terminal, start the server from that way as well. So let's get set up and started coding in the upcoming lesson.